Hi, it's Sam from the Insurance Emporium. We've spoken to Chris Allen, Dog Supply and Socialising Training Manager at Medical Detection Dogs. The team over at Medical Detection Dogs are doing incredible work, including researching the possibility to use dogs to detect and sniff out the COVID-19 virus. At the Insurance Emporium, we're proud to work in partnership with such an incredible organisation, providing insurance to their dogs. We found the interview with Chris really informative and learnt some surprising new facts. I hope you enjoy it as much as we did. Hi Chris, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good, you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. So you're the chief puppy trainer, is that right, at Medical Detection Dogs?
Yeah, got many titles. My main title is Dog Supply and Socialising Training Manager at Medical Detection Dogs. So I sort of look after the selection of all the puppies that come into Medical Detection Dogs, whether they're going to be a medical alert assistance dog, a fire detection dog, or sort of more recently maybe a COVID-19 dog. And then I manage the team of trainers that supports the puppies from about 8 weeks of age through to about 18 months, 20 months of age, making sure that they're getting all the training that's needed via the volunteer that we've got looking after the pups.
Fantastic. So I just wanted to know a bit about you, Chris. First of all, what's your sort of history in the field and with Medical Detection Dogs?
Sure. My career within the assistance dog world started 27 years ago. Fresh out of college, was lucky to walk in as a trainer role at another assistance dog organisation, and sort of learnt my trade there as a trainer, working my way up through the charity. And then during the 27 years, I've sort of carried out a number of different training roles, a few different manager roles and so forth. And then just over 2 years ago, I joined Medical Detection Dogs in this role. So sort of experience and a lot of knowledge within the assistance dog world.
Fantastic. So when it comes to the assistance dogs themselves, can you tell us exactly what they can detect and how they detect it?
Yeah, no, sure. With our medical alert assistance dogs, the dogs are trained to a number of life-threatening conditions, and it's all done obviously via odor. So we have type 1 diabetes, which is one of the more common life-threatening conditions that we train our medical alert assistance dogs to respond to. But we have many clients that have also got a condition called POTS, which is a cardiac condition, and can cause them to have sudden collapse, sudden faints. But the dogs will be able to detect this again through odor and alert their client to when they're going to have a clap episode. We have other dogs working out with clients that have got Addison's, and also severe allergies. So we've got a dog that's due to go out shortly, that's been trained to detect nuts within the area. So the client can now go into public environments, possibly go out and about, knowing that the dog will give the client an indication if they're coming into an environment where they're detecting nuts. It's then down to the client to decide whether they want to go into that environment, or whether they want to remove themselves away from that environment. But it all is done through odor. Cortisol levels, it could be sweat. It's there that the common areas that the odor is released from our clients. And it really is life-threatening. Our dogs are giving a very, very, very early indication to a change in odor. Sometimes a lot earlier than whether they were to feel it or whether they were to test themselves. So for many of our clients, the dogs are keeping them out of hospital. They're saving their lives. And they are also allowing our clients to live more independent lives. We've got a number of dogs that are working with children, so in teams. For parents that have got a child that have got type 1 diabetes, they are constantly up through the night checking they're okay, checking their bloods, just making sure they're okay, because Again, children are very vulnerable, and at this stage, they could quite easily wake up in hospital. So the medical alert assistance dog would be in the room with the child and would be next to them. And if they detect an odour change, they will wake up. They will wake up the child. They will then wake up the family. So again, way before the child or the family would notice any signs, the dog is there. They've indicated to the odour change and alerted the family. So in many scenarios, it really is a life-changing and life-saving behaviour that the dogs are doing, and it is all through that wonderful machine called their nose, which is truly an amazing machine, amazing part of the dog's body. So we're just tapping into what they've learned and what they've developed over thousands of years. I'm sure I've heard about, the hounds and the gun dogs that are using their noses to work. We're just tapping into that through our expertise and focusing them onto specific odours.
It's fantastic. It's almost like you can't beat nature, can you?
You definitely can't. These dogs, they are, humans, we sort of have 5 million receptors within our nose. Dogs have 300 million. So their nose is just built for this. It truly is amazing. And they've been bred over years to work alongside people as well. So not only have you got that, a dog there that has got a great nose and can detect you far sooner than most other devices out there. They've also are there as your companion. They're there as your to give you confidence. They're there to make you get out of bed and go for a walk and try and lead a normal life.
So the dogs at medical detection dogs, I suppose, in practice, are for more individual clients. Is that fair to say?
That's right. Yeah. So each of our dogs in the medical alert system dogs would work for an individual, because every person, like you and I, we have a unique odor. So we've got all different signatures. We've got different thumbprints. So we can teach the dog to recognize a type 1 diabetic odor. Generally, that's the first part of training. And then we need to get the dog working alongside their client to recognize their unique signature. This is what it generally smells like. Now you've got to learn your client's odor, learn their signature, so they can really start to home in on that person's odor and when it changes and how it changes. So they are very much sort of one-to-one assistance dogs.
So I suppose how long does it take to train a medical detection dog? From being a puppy through to being fully trained with the client.
Yeah, a medical alert assistance dog can take up to about 18 months, 2 years, thereabouts. Could be a little bit longer. The first 18 months of that puppy's training is allowing the puppy to grow, to develop its character, to undergo general training, socialization, get them used to everyday scenarios out and about. So get them into shopping centres, public transport, on the train, making sure that they have seen everything as much as possible. So when they go out working, they're not really seeing things for the first time. They've been there, they've done it, they've got the t-shirt. They now need to work alongside their client and just get used to their lifestyle. So by the time they're placed, they'll be between 18 months and 2 years. And then you've got that process of training with the client, dog getting used to their odor, adjusting to their lifestyle. So it can take another few more months or so to the dog to settle in and get used to their client. We gather data on all our clients and when the dogs are responding to a high or a low, so we can look at the accuracy of every dog. So they, via an app, they send through the reports, and then we can see how successful each dog is working. So it's a long process, but it's obviously a very worthwhile process for every client.
It's funny you mentioned the 18 months to 2 years, because I know plenty of dogs who at 2 years old were very much still excited puppies. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The breeds that we're generally using Labradors, Retrievers, some of the Spaniels, but they are the common breeds, and especially the Labs and Golden Retrievers. They take a little bit longer to mature. So even at 2 years, they've still got some developing, they've still got some growing to do, but they're through the core of it. They've gone through the teenage years, and there comes a time where the dog is ready for its next challenge. Mentally, they need a challenge. They need a little bit more stimulation than what they get in the early training phases, and that's where they then come into play with their clients.
So what do you look for then in a dog? What
Yeah,
makes a dog suitable for this kind of program?
yeah. So for the medical alert assistance dogs, we're obviously looking for a dog that's very sociable. They've got to be willing to please. They've got to want to be with people. If you had an independent dog, a dog that was quite happy to be by itself, then it perhaps wouldn't notice the odor change in the client because it's in a different room, or it's upstairs and the client's downstairs. So we need dogs that want to be with people. They're interested in people. We want dogs that do like that social attention. They're happy to go into town. They're happy to go into shops and on public transport. They get and they like that social attention. They've obviously got to have a good nose, and enjoy problem solving. Which, when we say good nose, it sounds a bit, well, all dogs have got good noses. They have, but it's how they use it at times. And as an assistance dog, it's not just about sniffing anything. It is sniffing a unique odor, but it's also then controlling your nose at other times, so you're not sniffing out crisp packets and rubbish on the floor. And also, you are pretty persistent, because say if a client was asleep 2 o'clock in the morning, and the dog, it does give an indication, that person may be heavy asleep, so they're not going to necessarily get a reaction straight away. So the dog's got to be quite persistent, quite willful. Come on, wake up. I want you to wake up. Come on, get on the bed. I'm going to wake you up. You must respond to me, because it's important. So dogs that are perhaps a little bit sensitive, lack a little bit of confidence, wouldn't be right for us, because they wouldn't enjoy that assistance dog lifestyle. Lovely, make lovely pets, just not what we're looking for, that sort of X factor, with our assistance dogs. But that's only one half of the charity. As you know, we've got our biodetection dogs as well, and they're a slightly different type of dog. The work that they do within the biodetection team needs a dog that is more work driven. It's more of a workaholic. It enjoys coming to work. It gets a buzz out of working, and it could work 24/7 because it just enjoys the game. So we need different dogs, different characteristics within the charity to supply our clients and the biodetection team with what they need.
Speaking of the biodetection team, when the COVID-19 pandemic struck, um, how did you realise the potential for the dogs to be able to be used? How soon after?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we obviously, throughout our years, we've trained dogs to recognise, and we've sort of provided stats and studies on dogs alerting to life-threatening conditions such as malaria, Parkinson's, some different types of cancers. And through our malaria work, we knew that there was something here. Our dogs could be trained to detect the COVID if it had an odor. And that's where we are at the moment. Our research, our experience has gave us the confidence to look into this. And as early as January, when it was first there, we really sort of started to talk to our collaborators, who we've worked with for many years. So London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, they worked with us, and we were collaborators on the malaria study, and worked very closely with them. So it was an instant yes for us to pair up with them and work with them and use their skill, their knowledge in that area. And then we were lucky that Durham University came on board as well. So as a three-way collaborator, we knew we had all the expertise in all the different areas to look into this and see whether it would be possible or not.
Fantastic. You've also had the Super 6 COVID-19 detection dogs, haven't you?
Yep.
Can you tell me more about those and how you identified them, what the whole process was there?
Sure. Yeah, the Super 6, bless them, they've got a lot of publicity, and there's a lot of people out there that have got their sort of favourites, whether that's the little spaniel that was Norman, or the Labradoodle Digby, or Storm, the golden retriever cross Labrador. I think everyone has their personal favourites. For us, it was obviously we had to get a group of dogs that we knew had a good nose, and that we knew pretty well. Because it was a new project, and there's people out there, everyone's really interested to see how we do, whether the dogs can prove it or not. So the Super 6 are dogs that we looked at that were within the charity, that were on perhaps different projects. So Asher, one of the little Cocker Spaniels, who's one of the sort of the most experienced dogs on the team. He's been used for other studies previously, so we knew that he had a very good nose. He'd already proven on other studies that he was trustworthy. So having some dogs on that had been on other projects that were going to be able to cross over without any issues or without any concerns would be good, because we could put our trust in them. We also needed some dogs that were young, that were going to come on board, that we could see how well a young dog would take to the training, how well a young dog would pick up the odour. And that's where we perhaps got some of the younger dogs on the Super 6. And they all come from different walks of life. We've got some dogs there that come from breeders and other organisations. We've got some dogs on there that have come from welfare backgrounds, so rescue centres. So it is about their personality. It's about their work drive, their work ethic. The work and the way that the Super 6 and the COVID dogs will initially work is on stands in our bio department, and that's proving the concept that COVID does have an odour. So you need dogs, one, that are proven, but two, have got a real work, as I said earlier, a real work ethic, because they will be eventually introduced to samples. Some of those samples will have the COVID odour in, some of them won't. They may have other conditions, other health conditions. They may have nothing going on, but there's going to be lots and lots of repetition. And this is where we need the workaholic that's just going to keep going. Yeah, I like this. Okay, I've done that run. I've given an indication. I've told you what I think to those first 6-7 samples. Right, it's my go again. I'm going to go down the next run, and it's quite repetitive. So those people that have got dogs that love the tennis ball, there are dogs out there that you can just throw the tennis ball for, throughout the whole day, and they just wouldn't get bored of it. They're just coming back, dropping the ball, throw it again. They're the types of personalities that we want, because they're going to do their run, come back and say, oh, let me go again. I like that challenge. But they also do like a challenge. They like to problem solve, because when we come to the end of the project and we come to our double-blind testing, no one knows, when we're handling the dogs at that stage, where the samples are. It's all coded up. So you're relying on the dog to tell you that sample 4 is a COVID sample, or that sample, or this run of samples has no COVID odour in. And as a handler, you don't know that information, so you're really having to go off what the dog's telling you. But the dog is also having to take control and say, I know what the situation is here. They're not looking for the handler to give them any reassurance, to give them any signals. Again, anyone that sort of does dog training will know that dogs are very tuned into our body. and we'll get to know our communication skills, even the most subtle signals that we give very, very well. We've got to make sure that those dogs don't get any of those signals. And to do that, the trainers actually work behind a screen, a one-way glass, so that the handlers can see out, see what the dogs are doing, but the dogs can't see in and see the handler. So when the dog does give an indication, the handler can say, yeah, it's that indication on that stand. And it is purely the dog making the decision. So you've got to have a confident dog. You've got to have a dog in that way that is happy to take the lead and make those decisions.
You've got to have a dog that's really drivey, really wants to do the work. Because you can't
Definitely.
motivate them with a paycheck, can you?
No, that's it. No, you've got to. And yes, throughout our training, we'll use toys or we use treats. But as you get through training, when you start to become sort of going through double blind, you don't always know where the odor is, which one holds it. So you can't reward every time, because you can't run the risk of rewarding the dog for an incorrect indication. So that's again where you've got to have that type of personality. That it's about the search. It's about the game that is self-rewarding for them.
Fantastic. Really interesting stuff there. You touched on a little bit about the collaboration with the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and also the University of Durham. Can you tell me more about how you've worked closely with those?
Sure. Yeah, the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. We, as I said, started working with them back in 2018, and that's where we did our malaria project. And both London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and Durham University were both involved in that project. This was the first time that dogs have been trained to detect a life-threatening condition on a parasitic infection. And like I say, if it wasn't for the malaria project, we may not have thought that COVID potentially was possible. That experience and working with the two collaborators back in 2018, we knew that we, as a threesome, we could really work together on the COVID-19 project and show to the world what these dogs can do. So working with them going forward is brilliant. We all need each other. We've all got a certain skill set that we're bringing to the table here and bring to the project to make this a real three-way collaborative project going forward and show that dogs, fingers crossed, can do it.
And how close are we to knowing that? How soon will we know the viability of using the dogs to detect COVID?
Yeah, we're not too far away. What the challenge is at the moment is getting positive samples in, which is it's a good challenge that there's not so many positive samples out there anymore. It's really good to see. But from our point of view, we've got hundreds of samples that are being collected. I think it's by about 14 NHS trusts across the country. But getting the positive samples is what the challenge is. And what's good now is that anyone can help with this project. So if you know of someone who has been tested for COVID-19, you can contact the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. There's a number to contact. You go onto their website and they can send you out a kit for us, and we can collect those samples live from that person. That will then be sent back to the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. They will then deal with that sample, making sure it's safe. It's a dead sample, so it can then be sent over to us for training. So at the moment, we've not actually got the samples in because we need to have a certain amount. But once we get them in, which we're hoping in the next 2 to 3 weeks will be happening, we then sort of estimate it's going to be around about 6 to 8 weeks before we know whether the dogs can detect COVID-19 or not.
So now's a really crucial time for you then.
It is. It's an exciting time. So the frustration is just getting those positive samples in. So the more people that are aware that they can actually help us if they do know of someone is really important. but no, we're all sort of on tenterhooks here now, just waiting to get the samples in. The dogs are here, the dogs are ready. We've brought a few more dogs into the scheme as well, to make sure, because like everything, dogs change when the pressure gets tough. Not every dog can go through training throughout. So we've brought a few more dogs into the training pot, just to make sure that we've got enough dogs going through to the double-blind testing at the end of the 6 to 8 week period.
Fantastic. So how many other dogs have we got in addition to the Super 6 then?
Yeah, there's another few more dogs sort of coming on board. There's 2 or 3 other dogs that we've brought into the team, just to give us that strength and that depth. So again, there's some young dogs, there's some dogs that have been on some of the other biodetection projects, again, historically. So we've got a very, very strong team now, and they're all just ticking over, ready for when the samples come through in the next couple of weeks.
Fantastic. And so at the end of this 6 to 8 weeks, assuming that it's all positive and the dogs can detect the COVID, I guess what are the broader applications of the work? Where could we see the detection dogs being used?
Initially, we're sort of thinking testing stations. It could be going into train stations, ferry ports, airports, that sort of scenario. We're all used to seeing dogs customed and excised, dogs with passive search dogs with police handlers being walked around certain environments. Initially, we can see our dogs going into those environments and just working as passive search dogs. So just scanning people when they're perhaps coming off an aeroplane that's come from a country that's got that we're concerned about, or obviously the government are concerned about, or a train that's perhaps come in that we just want to scan the passengers as they walk through. And it's very, very subtle. A lot of the time you don't know what's happening. Obviously the dogs are working from a slight distance. They're not jumping up at you, they're not touching you, they're just very quietly walking around the crowds, and then if they detect the odor, they'll then sort of give an indication to the handler. The handler would then let the professionals there know, and then obviously a test could be carried out to see whether that person then needs to be put into self-isolation or not. Could be sporting events. I think it's a bit, we're still sort of finding our feet. We're a bit unclear where this may lead, but there's obviously a number of scenarios I think that we can all think of where a dog could go into somewhere and detect and work amongst a large crowd of people. Could be going into corporates,
So anywhere that's sort of got a high volume of people coming through, anywhere that's high risk, like you say, like an airport, like a train station.
Yeah. There are our first thoughts, but I would say that if you came back to us in 12 months' time, what we're doing then will look different to where we are now. This project is evolving every week. There's a new idea. There's something new that's being brought to the project for us to look into, to think about, to consider. So I'm sure this time next year, the dogs out there working will be working in some different scenarios to what we're thinking today.
And so if and when the programme is rolled out, where will these dogs be stationed? Who will they live with?
Yeah, some will live with volunteers local to the centre. So we have all our dogs live with volunteers. We have a no kennel policy at Medical Detection Dogs. So whether it's a biodetection dog, it's a puppy in training, it's a medical alert assistance dog, whenever it's in training, every night it goes home with a volunteer or its trainer. Then it'll come to the centre for a day's training and then go home. So we have a real strong network of volunteers locally, but I'm sure in time there will be volunteers wider afield throughout the country that may be holding one or two, a COVID dog for us, whilst there's a operational handler maybe in that area. So, for instance, I suppose if you were to put a dog working in say in Heathrow, we're not necessarily going to support that from here at our headquarters near Milton Keynes. We'd perhaps look for a handler in that area that can go in and support that area. So, with these dogs eventually, I'm sure will be living with volunteers and their trainers throughout the country. Is our hopes.
Yeah. Well, it's all fantastic stuff, and I'm looking forward to hearing more in the next, as you say, 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Looking forward to hearing that it's successful.
Yeah, no, we all are. We all are.
I suppose
we all believe the dogs can do it. So,
have you got any final thoughts that you'd like to give on this?
No, I'd just like to obviously thank you for your time and giving us the opportunity to talk about the charity. And I think, anyone that's interested, just keep an eye on our website, keep an eye on our social media. As I say, it's changing weekly. It really is. We've got dogs coming in for training. We've got new ideas. So just keep an eye on what we're doing. And as I say, if you do know of someone that unfortunately is diagnosed with the ODA, the COVID-19, then do think about getting a testing kit or a selection kit from London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and help us collect those positive samples that we urgently need.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. We hope you enjoyed this interview with Chris. Remember, you can keep up with all of the organisation's work over at medicaldetectiondogs.org.uk.